You unlock this benefit with the key of Patreon. Beyond is another dimension. A dimension of thought. A dimension of speculation. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both waffle and substance. Of things and ideas. You've just crossed into the podcast zone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Trekking Through the Twilight Zone. Sticking with me and Julian as we join Rod Serling from episode to episode. And I hope you're sitting back because, the hour's getting late and we're going to be talking about some robots. That's right, we're talking about the lateness of the hour. First thing first, before we get into anything, this one looks different. This is one of 6 episodes recorded on videotape rather than film. And it does have a noticeable difference of look, but I found it really interesting. It looks like a teleplay rather than a filmed episode because it's all internal on sets as well. So quite an interesting episode. What were your thoughts on the lateness of the hour?
Yeah, I did notice that, and I assumed that it was due to digitization, because, we're watching everything streaming in one way or another. So I just thought, oh, well, this is from a bad copy or something.
No, I looked into it. It was due to budgetary restrictions. They were running over on other episodes, and because this and several other episodes in the season, or I don't know if it's the season or the whole thing, were filmed entirely on a set, no exterior shots. They filmed it on video instead of film, and which is why it looks. Yeah. Now, what I would say is that's how all British shows were filmed at this time, and so that's why I was like, this looks like a British teleplay. And that is why.
Yeah, and for quite a long time after, too.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I like this episode fine. I mean, it sort of doesn't amount to a lot. It's the classic sort of android episode where, somebody who's a human is really an android, and you know that right away. I mean, having said that, it does what it does, and it's fine. And it wants to have a deeper message about, much like, Nick of Time, the last episode, about live your life, about like going out of the house and don't seclude yourself. And I don't know that any of that actually works.
No. I have one big problem with this episode is the end of the episode tells you what he should have done from the off. So the opposite is there's a guy, Dr. Loren or whatever, retired roboticist, who's created these androids and they sort of look after he and his wife. And then there is his daughter. But the androids are like the housemaid and the butler and the gardener and all this other stuff. And so, at one point, the daughter starts to get a bit irate and starts to sort of say, I want rid of them. We should, like you say, we should go out, we should do this and we should do that. And then when she starts to confront the robots, or the androids, I should say, the human-looking androids, like, there's one moment when they all sort of, it gets menacing. Like I almost thought this was going to be an android revolt episode, but they still obey him because there's one moment where the daughter throws one of the housemaid, whatever, down the stairs, and the housemaid gives this like sinister, menacing grin back at her, and I was like, oh, this is going to go south. This is. And it never happens.
No, but and they're sassy. Those, I mean, even when Dr. Lauren tells them to like go in the basement, and they know that they're basically being deactivated, they don't want that, and they seem sassy, and they talk back to him, and he just insists on it, and then they obey. But yeah, you're right. It definitely plays with that, like, oh, one of the laws of robotics is about to get broken.
That was what I was expecting. However, at the end of the episode, the reveal, we'll go straight to that just to understand this bit, but the reveal is that the other robots have been all dismantled, yet they've turned the android that is their daughter into, I don't know, the maid or whatever, giving the wife a massage, giving a shoulder massage. Mm-hmm. And that sort of gave me 2 problems. Firstly, she's reprogrammable. So instead of dismantling all the others, why not just lure her to the basement and be like, right, okay, well, the problem is she's thinking too much. Let's take some of that out. But the other point, there's a whole discussion about how they love her because she is their daughter. Yet the wife seems perfectly happy that her brain dead daughter is now giving her a massage. Like,
yes. It does seem like the emotional weight that the episode hinges upon, which is that they built her to be an artificial daughter for them. And that, obviously they catered to her. I mean, she wants to get rid of the robot. She's advocating going out. And, this is the main drama of the episode. They catered to her. But then at the end, right, perfectly happy to have her as a domesticated, worker who looks like the daughter, somebody who they emotionally feel as a daughter. That's pretty creepy.
Yeah, and that's the point. Like, I don't know who is like the villain. It's like this episode tries to set things up as a villain, and then eventually I'm like, villain's probably not the right word. Like a threat. Like at one point, like the robots are going to be a threat, the androids are going to be a threat, or whatever. And what it turns out to be is that no, the wife and husband are just emotionally devoid of any connection. And actually, they're the threat because they could just turn these beings on and off at their will. And like you say, I never got what the message was of this film. Like you get the reveal at the end, which is obvious, but I'm not entirely sure what it's trying to say or do.
The part that I don't understand is about seclusion from the outside world, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure that really holds up. The daughter advocates that, and clearly the doctor and his wife are content to live with these robots and safety, and he says he's protecting his daughter. But if that is basically a lie, because he's not really protecting his daughter, she's a damn robot, then that sort of disappears and it's a robot story. But I'm fine with it being a robot story. And I will say, like, for as much as we're fans of Blade Runner and things like that, there's more actual discussion of sort of, oh shit, I might be a robot and my memories are false, than you get in all of Blade Runner. Now, it's not high quality, stunning stuff. It's not going to, win an Emmy, but it's good to see that. I'm entertained by it.
Yeah, that's the only part of this episode I liked, in all honesty. although again, it sort of bothered me. There's this photo album that Chekhov's photo album. She's flicking through at the beginning of the episode, and she starts questioning one of the maids. She's like, "You haven't changed in 20 years," which is clearly when you identify that they are robots. That's what sort of from the opening. And she's quite sort of like heavily, because even the husband's like, or the dad's like, you need to stop looking at that thing. Like you look at it every night, this other thing. And then it's like, and then at the end, the part of the reveal is, she looks it through and she's like, yeah, there's no pictures of me as a child. And I'm like, yeah, you
just
surely
noticing that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, did you not pick that up at any of the point? Like, you were so fixated on the house staff that you were like, yes, Martha, you've been here. You look exactly the same 20 years ago. Yeah, you're older than 20. You're not about.
Yeah. It's not clear when they built her either. So probably she would have photos in which she looked relatively the same. Now, in my house, that would not have been odd to not have photos of us as kids, because all my parents ever took in our albums were photos of the dogs. So, it's page after page of the dogs. And every once in a while, it's like, oh, our two boys are in the background. Clearly, the priorities were visible there. But, that, not to do this thing we do of potentially rewriting episodes, but, I thought that would have been cleared up by, well, yeah, we had a daughter. She died or she left. And then, I built this robot to look like her, and now we have her forever.
That's what I was expecting. I was expecting that conversation when she starts to confront them and they give the dialogue or the monologue about this thing about having a daughter and stuff. Like I thought exactly the same thing. I'm like, we lost a daughter, or there was a tragic accident, or she's gone off and married and never sees us, or whatever. Like, I don't know. There was I was expecting a justification rather than just sort of like, yeah, we wanted a daughter, so we built you at this age.
Yeah, that is strange. Well, you and I both expected that to be part of the reveal.
I was fully expecting this whole backstory, and there doesn't appear to be one. I mean, I like this idea she has about this memory tape, though, that she does have a memory of all this childhood, and he's already said, like, oh no, they have like a full backstory. Like, I've given them this because that's Blade Runner. Like, that is, they say that, don't they, to help them. They give them this memories, all these things, these false memories to sort of help them and stuff.
So they feel psychologically real and complete.
Yeah. And so I like that, again, that there's this thing of like, oh no, we actually have given them, like, you can question them, they fully remember a childhood. And I like that as a tease, because then she's like, I remember all these things, but obviously they didn't exist. That's all nice. But again, it's one of those episodes where I'm like, I like certain parts, but the pacing sort of fits where I'm like, the bits I really like, I wish they'd broadened out into sort of more of the episode. I don't know. What about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think that, I mean, I'm okay with this episode. I like this episode. I like it better than you do. And we all sort of see the twist coming, but I like that Blade Runner stuff. I mean, I'm quite content with maybe I just like robots, but in the idea of what's real and what's not. But I'm quite content with a average run-of-the-mill robot story that is competently done, and outside of the points we pointed out about you're quite entirely correct about this photo album. But I mean, photos are used in Blade Runner too. That's they at least they make artificial photos, to the fake photos for you to remember your phony childhood from and stuff. But I mean, so this has a couple issues, but I was quite, I mean, it's perfectly fine to me.
It's fine. It's okay. I mean, I think it's that thing of like the build up takes quite a bit of time, and it would have been a great reveal if actually he'd said, like, if he'd have said, oh, I've dismantled them, and then it turns out he hasn't. He's just told them all to wait in the basement. Something, just, I don't know, but it's just the reveal at the very end felt disappointing to me.
Well, and if you're going to make your daughter domestic, I mean, why not? Are other people domestics? I mean, why not have replaced your wife who left you because you never leave the house, and then you have a duplicate of yourself to have done the annoying chores that your wife wants you to do, and you died, and he just became the head of the household, and they're all robots. I mean, there are a lot of other things that would have been more interesting than the twist, and wouldn't have required more money to film.
No, yeah, and when I mean the twist, I do mean the turning the daughter into the household sort of thing. The reveal of her being a robot is fine and actually works well, and does have a little bit of punch to it. But yeah, it's that final sort of like the final couple of seconds or the final minute of the episode where I'm like, yeah, all right, you just showed how callous you actually both are at this point. Like,
yeah, I mean, I will say as a final thought, I like the idea of making robots of my family who will they'll listen to me finally. And we've seen sort of versions of that, of sort of like in certain Android movies and fiction, of sort of, would you really want that? Would that really be satisfying to you, or is the conflict part of the reality that you want to duplicate and part of the love? For me, it's not. I'm just gonna get Dr. Lauren to make domestic copies of all of my family members, and I'll be happy.
Fair enough. Talk about, thinking back on those we've recently talked about, but they remade that Eye of the Beholder. This is one where I think, like, you've taken 60s sensibilities toward robots. If this had been made remade in the early 2000s, and they'd given the opportunity to redo this and kept some elements, this would have been a really good. I can see this being a really interesting one. With our updated technology and approach to machinery, like, if you were to remake this one, like, you could really do something interesting with it.
Well, also the central change between those two eras is we identify with the robots now. So,
yes, exactly.
The daughter would be saying, why are these memories not real just because you made them? I feel being in that room. I feel that teacher. Why should you not be the domestic?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what makes what is that thing of like, what's the difference? Like, I have a memory. I've done all these things. Like, what's why am I any different to you? Yeah, I think this would be an interesting. This would have been an interesting remake to do now, to show those different sensibilities, sort of 60 years later. But yeah, any final thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. The lateness of the hour. What are your thoughts on robotics and this episode? Let us know. We're quite interested. But other than that, thank you very much for listening, and we shall see you soon.